In February, 60 sheep stood in a mud lot with nowhere left to go, and one woman was the only person in the county willing to take them. By late summer, the pasture behind her house, the ground everyone said was finished for good, was thick and green again, green enough that strangers pulled off the county road just to look at it. Nobody could explain it, not at first, not even her. What did Delia Marsh know that everyone else in that sales yard missed? The sheep came from a farm 2 counties over that had failed slowly, the way most do, not in one bad year, but in 5 quiet ones stacked together. When the bank took the equipment, the livestock went up for whatever it would bring, and nobody wanted 60 sheep that hadn't been wormed or sheared properly in a year, and looked like they might not survive the trailer ride home. Delia stood at the rail, arms crossed, watching them push against each other, thin, nervous, coats matted with burrs. "You don't want those," said Ray Colton, a neighbor who'd known her since she was a girl. "Half of them won't make it to spring." "I know," she said. "Then why are you standing here?" She didn't answer right away. She was watching how the flock moved, not scattered, but tight, like they'd learned to survive by staying close. An old, thick-necked ewe kept pushing to the edge of the group, putting her body between the others and the gate every time someone walked past. That was instinct, doing work nobody had paid for. Delia noticed things like that, the kind of noticing that came from 8 years of watching land that used to make money instead cost her more every season. When the bidding opened, nobody raised a hand. The auctioneer said the number twice, then faster, the way auctioneers do when they already know how a sale will end. Delia raised hers. The room went quiet, the way small towns go quiet, when everyone's thinking the same thing and nobody says it. Ray shook his head. The auctioneer asked if she was sure. She said she was. She wrote the check in the truck, doing math that didn't work out no matter how she arranged it. 60 sheep meant 60 mouths, and she had 80 acres declared, more or less officially, dead. She drove home telling herself she'd figure it out. She always had. Then, pulling into her own drive, she saw the gate on the north fence, holding what pasture she had left, had blown down 2 nights before, and she hadn't gotten around to fixing it. The trailer backed up to the makeshift pen just after 4, and by 5, Delia understood exactly how much trouble she'd bought. Water was the first problem, a crack down the length of the old trough, fixed with a headlamp, sealant, and an hour of swearing while 40 sheep pressed against the fence, thirsty and unimpressed. Then it was fencing. The cattle panels she'd cobbled together weren't built for sheep that had already learned to slip through gaps, and by full dark she'd chased 11 of them through the garden and halfway to the road before turning them back. One ewe, older than the rest, torn ear, slow deliberate walk, wouldn't be herded at all. She simply stood in the headlamp beam, chewing without hurry, as if she'd already decided this place was fine and everyone else just needed to catch up. Delia noticed the ram, nervous and narrow-eyed, flinching every time a truck passed, and a young ewe with a limp who never left another sheep's side, following her so closely that Delia started thinking of them as a pair before she'd sorted names for herself. By 11, sitting on an overturned bucket, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with hours worked, she looked out at her dark pasture and admitted, to no one, that she had no real plan. But the old ewe was standing at the fence line, staring out at the dead ground beyond it, patient, unbothered, watching the field like she was waiting for something. It stuck with Delia longer than it should have. Word travels fast, where there isn't much else to talk about, and within a week, half the county had an opinion about Delia Marsh and her 60 sheep. "You could sell half of them right now and cut your losses," Ray said at her fence, watching 2 sheep limp across the yard. "Nobody would blame you." "I'm not selling them. You're feeding animals that won't earn you a dime. That land's been dead 3 years. You know that better than anyone." He wasn't wrong, which made it hard to argue with. The pasture had been grazed too hard for too long by the previous owner, then baked under drought years with nothing left to hold the soil together. What remained was compacted dirt, studded with thistle, bare in patches wide enough to walk a truck through. Her cousin called to offer a loan. A man from the feed store said kindly there was no shame in admitting a mistake early. Even her father, retired now, walked the fence line with her in silence and finally said, "Your grandfather would have sold this land before he let it get like this." Delia didn't have an answer that satisfied any of them, or herself. All she had was a stubborn instinct, an old ewe who watched the field like it owed her something, and a growing suspicion that nobody judging her had looked closely at what these sheep did. They weren't wrong to doubt her. That was what made it sting. The land had belonged to her grandfather, and before any bank held a piece of it, it had fed 3 generations of cattle without complaint. Delia inherited it 8 years ago, along with a mortgage that assumed the ground would keep performing the way it always had. It hadn't. Years of overgrazing under the previous tenant, then 2 brutal drought summers, had stripped the organic matter from the topsoil until it barely held together in a hard rain. Water ran off instead of soaking in. What grass grew came in thin and stressed, quickly outcompeted by thistle and knapweed. She'd tried what the extension office recommended, resting the field, spraying weeds, spreading what fertilizer she could afford. None of it took. Every specialist who walked the ground told her, in careful professional language, what Ray had said bluntly: "This ground is done." Losing the pasture meant more than losing grass. It meant losing her leverage against the loan, and the promise she'd made herself the day she signed the papers that she wouldn't be the one who let her grandfather's land go under. She stood at the edge of the worst of it one evening, boots sinking into cracked, dry soil, and admitted she'd bought 60 sheep with almost nothing to feed them, on land that couldn't support what little she already had. If you've ever taken on something everyone told you not to, tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and what convinced you to see it through. 3 weeks in, exhaustion had become routine, and Delia had mostly stopped expecting anything from the pasture at all. She'd been rotating the sheep through a scrubby patch near the old creek bed, out of necessity rather than strategy, the only ground she could keep them on while rebuilding the rest of the fence. It was the limping young ewe who led her back there one morning, wandering off toward ground Delia hadn't paid attention to in a week. When she went to fetch her, she stopped. The section grazed hardest, trampled and manured, and picked nearly bare, looked different. Not lush, nothing close, but small green shoots pushed through soil that had been cracked and grey for as long as she could remember. The ground gave slightly under her boot instead of resisting hard and packed. She crouched and dug her fingers in. Darker than the soil 10 feet away. Looser. It smelled, faintly, like something alive. She told herself it was nothing. A patch of weed seed that happened to sprout. A trick of recent rain. She'd been wrong about this land before, but she came back the next morning, and the next, checking that patch like it might disappear if she didn't watch it. Was something actually changing under her feet, or had she simply reached the point where she needed to believe it was? Whatever hope had started building collapsed within days. A cold front rolled through overnight, and by morning 3 sheep were down with what the vet called pneumonia, likely from the stress of the move meeting sudden weather. One was the nervous ram, wheezing in the corner of the barn, refusing feed, watching Delia with a fear that turned her stomach. The vet bill put her feed budget underwater for the month. 2 days later, a weak section of fence gave way in a storm, and she spent 6 hours chasing sheep out of the neighbor's cornfield, soaked through, sure half the road had seen it. Ray found her afterward, sitting on the tailgate, hands raw and shaking. "You don't have to keep doing this," he said, not unkindly. "Nobody would think less of you for cutting your losses now." She almost agreed. She thought about the check she'd written, the mortgage payment coming due, the small green patch by the creek that might have meant nothing at all. It would have been easy, right then, to let it go. But the ram pulled through that night, standing on shaky legs by morning, and the old ewe was back at the fence line, watching the field the way she always did, like she knew something Delia hadn't figured out yet. Delia stayed. It was late spring before the pieces fit together, and even then it happened slowly, in the way that only makes sense looking back. She began comparing sections of pasture side by side, the patch near the creek where the sheep had grazed hard, and moved on, against wider stretches she'd left completely alone, hoping rest alone would do what it hadn't managed in years. The rested ground looked exactly the way it always had. The grazed patch kept improving. She started paying closer attention to what the sheep actually did there, not just that they ate the weeds. They trampled dead thatch flat into the soil, breaking down organic matter that had sat inert for seasons. Their manure went down thick and even, feeding microbial life the soil had been starved of. Their hooves broke up the crusted surface just enough to let water soak in, without compacting it the way cattle would have. She talked to an old sheepman 2 towns over, described what she was seeing, and he nodded like it wasn't news to him. Short bursts, then move them off, he said. Give the ground time to rest between. Not magic, just how grass and animals used to work together before anybody separated them. She went back and started doing it on purpose, dividing the pasture into small sections, pushing the flock through hard and fast, then pulling them off to recover before grazing again. It wasn't a discovery so much as a remembering, a practice her grandfather might have used without ever naming it. Wait, that's why the sheep nobody wanted were exactly what this land needed. Not because they were special, because their ordinary, everyday behavior did for the soil what nothing else had. By midsummer, the change wasn't something she had to convince herself of anymore. Section by section, as the rotation moved through, the pasture came back, bare patches filled in, the soil held together under her boot instead of crumbling. Water that once ran straight off the hard ground soaked in now, and the grass held a green that hadn't been there in years, even through weeks without rain. The sheep changed too. Coats filled out. Ribs stopped showing. The nervous ram calmed enough to graze near the fence, without bolting at passing trucks, and the young ewe's limp eased until she kept pace with the flock instead of trailing behind. It was the old ewe with the torn ear who gave Delia the moment she'd remember longest. Standing in the section that had recovered first, grass thick, up past her knees, the old ewe lay down in it, unhurried, chewing, completely at ease, in ground that 3 months earlier had been cracked dirt and thistle. Delia stood at the fence and watched her for a long time. The land wasn't fixed. There were still weak patches, sections that needed another full season before she'd trust them. But for the first time since she'd inherited the place, she could stand at the edge of her pasture and see it moving in the right direction instead of the wrong one. Ray showed up in early autumn, leaning on the fence, taking in ground that had been, by his own account, finished for good. "This the same field?" he finally asked, "or did you buy new land and not tell me?" "Same field." He was quiet, taking in the thick grass and the flock spread calm across it. Nothing like the thin, panicked animals off that trailer in February. "How?" he said, not really a question, more like a man still working out whether to believe his own eyes. She explained it plainly. The rotation, the short bursts of grazing, the rest periods between, the way manure and trampled thatch had done for the soil what fertilizer never managed. Once she said it out loud, it sounded embarrassingly simple. 60 sheep nobody wanted, Ray said, shaking his head. They weren't the problem everyone thought, Delia said. They were just doing what sheep do. Turns out that's exactly what this ground needed. He didn't apologize. Not exactly. That wasn't how Ray operated. But he came back the following week with his own extension pamphlet on rotational grazing, asking questions like a man reconsidering 30 years of habit. That was enough of an apology enough. If you've ever been the one everybody doubted and turned out to be right, tell us where you're watching from. By the following spring, the pasture once photographed as a cautionary example was feeding 60 sheep and holding enough reserve grass that Delia sold hay off a corner of it for the first time in nearly a decade. The old ewe was still there, slower now, but healthy, first to the fence line every morning. The nervous ram had settled into the flock's rhythm, and the young ewes' limp had faded to almost nothing. None of them had been named, but Delia knew every one by the trouble or comfort each had given her. An agricultural agent came out that spring, walked the fence line, and asked whether Delia would talk to other landowners dealing with the same exhausted ground. She said she would, on the condition nobody expected a miracle. Just patience and animals doing what they were built to do, managed with intention instead of neglect. The mortgage was still there. The fencing still needed work most weeks. The land would always need managing. She'd stopped expecting otherwise. But the ground everyone had written off, the sheep nobody had wanted, had become the thing holding her farm together. She still remembers standing at that auction rail, 60 animals nobody would bid on, a pasture behind her that experts had already given up on. Everyone else saw two problems. She saw one answer to the other, even before she understood how. That's usually how it goes. The thing everyone calls useless is often just waiting for someone to notice what it's actually for. If this story meant something to you, subscribe to the Farmland Files for more real stories about the land, the animals, and the people who refuse to give up on either. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from tonight.